Hey, and welcome to the Vergecast for the week of April 15th, 2013. I'm Josh Topolsky.
I'm Neil Patel.
I'm Ross Miller.
And we're back.
Can I quickly just address the Paul situation? Because I've gotten a lot of tweets.
Please do.
Like, where's
No.
Paul? Paul is not on the
I
internet.
don't like
yet.
your background here.
Mine?
I don't like this. All I can see is like a wall and a door.
Where are
You
the
look
people?
cell shaded.
No big deal. No big deal.
I am cell shaded, actually.
They're still doing a lot of experience. Yeah, you've been superimposed. It's weird because I look like I've been superimposed as well.
Yeah. It's a new vibe.
There's a conspiracy
it's
theory that this
the
is
light-
always green screen.
The
This only
lighting
proves
is.
it.
I'm not sure. I'm not crazy about this either. What's that white thing over? This thing over here. What is that? I don't know. Anyhow,
Paul.
Let's talk about Paul.
Paul's not back on the internet yet. He's at the end of a spirit journey.
Yeah.
He'll be back in 12 days. Then it will be triumphant. But don't rest assured that he's fine.
Yeah.
He's just very busy.
Paul's fine.
Doing the last things that we do.
He's prepping his return to the internet.
Yeah.
I got some hair stuff going on here. There we go. He's prepping his return to the internet, and he'll be back in full force. Believe me.
Yeah. He'll be back. He literally, I spoke to him on the phone just before, and he was like, when I'm back, you won't be able to get rid of me." It was actually kind of threatening.
That is vaguely.
He has been setting up a cot over there in the back. I mean, he is not leaving the studio.
Yeah, no, he'll be vergecasting 24 hours a day when he returns.
You know,
People
people
will watch
would love a 24-hour Paul cast.
No, they'd
Yes,
freak out.
absolutely.
Maybe when he comes back,
It'd be the best.
We'll
We'll put a drone on him.
Anyhow, there's a lot of news to discuss this week. Obviously, not all of it really very upbeat. In fact, this has been like kind of a crushing.
It's been a terrible week.
It's been a crushing news week.
Yeah.
We started on Monday with the Boston Marathon bombing, and last night there's been all sorts of things that have happened related to that have been terrible. Last night there was this explosion in Texas,
Which is unrelated.
And is not a terrorist, as far as we know, not a terrorist attack, and is actually sadly. One in a line of many types of accidents like this is like a fertilizer.
Right.
Fertilizer explosion. Factory explosions are apparently not as uncommon as they should be. But that's what happens when you're working with substances like ammonium nitrate and all these crazy chemicals that they put into fertilizers, which, by the way, goes into your food. So that should make you feel really, really good about your store-bought groceries, your store-bought apples. But so it's been a big and kind of tough week. And I think we want to start by talking about Boston.
Yeah.
And what's been happening since Boston. Obviously, Monday was insane.
Yeah.
We, saw this story breaking on Twitter and felt very strongly that it was something that we needed to cover. And it turns out, I think this is one of those, we've been covering a lot of national security lately. We've covered North Korea, the sort of disputes between North Korea and the U.S. or the rest of the world. We've covered some serious stuff, and
just in general, we've been talking about cities doing surveillance and security.
Yeah, a lot of drone stories, a lot of surveillance stories. We did this great report. If you didn't see it, this great feature about Taser and their new cams that they're
literally,
using.
this show last week was just me, Matt Stroud, and Ben Popper and Carl Franzen talking about surveillance.
Yeah.
We've been very focused on it.
So we obviously covered the news on Monday, which was chaotic and crazy, and then there's been a ton of follow up. But I think the most interesting, one of the most interesting developments that has come out of this is this. At least in the last couple of days, and at least if you work on the internet and you are a news junkie, this thing with
the Post.
The New York Post and just kind of like Reddit and 4chan have taken it upon themselves at the request of no one to begin sifting through photographic and video evidence that from or not even evidence, just pictures and video from the marathon to try to identify suspects in this case. Right. And the authorities said to the public, if you have videos, if you have photos, please give them to us and any useful information that you think might be might help us find.
It was literally the first thing the authorities actually said at their press conference on Monday. Was they said, this is terrible, we don't know what's going on. Here's a phone number for
Tips.
For tip. Well,
Yeah.
here's a phone number for your family. If you're missing somebody,
Right.
and then here's a phone number for tips.
Yeah. No, they were. It was obvious that look. I mean, the way this thing developed. The way we saw this thing breaking on Twitter and all of these photos and video and just like immediately following it. And by the way, this kind of happened with the explosion last night, but just this incredible immediate outpouring of info, just random info. So somehow, and I don't know how the internet got this idea in its head, but people on Reddit decided, and people on 4chan decided, of all places, decided that they're going to not just hand over what they might have, or
they're going to start doing amateur.
They're going to do
forensics,
amateur forensics on these photos, and it already has within, I'd say, 24, 48 hours of that really commencing and it being a public thing. It's already resulted in just terrible, terrible stuff happening. And we covered something today. The New York Post ran a story. Front page story. Now, the New York Post, not really known for.
I mean, this week has been above and beyond for this. Like even the Onion kind of skewered them pretty hard for this.
I mean, the New York Post already was reporting bad information. They said, day of, night of, they said Saudi national and all this stuff.
Dozens dead.
Dozens dead has not panned out. I mean, this is like last night during the fertilizer explosion. There were these reports, 70 people dead, and people. CNN was sort of kind of reporting it. I
mean, I have to say, so I've been watching a lot of CNN. And Addie has been watching a lot of CNN with me.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Can you guys turn down my volume in my earpiece? Is extremely loud right now. Okay, great.
Anyway, so Addie and I have been watching a lot of CNN as we manage this coverage.
Yeah.
And watching I don't want to turn this into a journalism conversation, but watching how that operates, where literally the story goes from one thing. And then it's Anderson Cooper and John King look at their cell phones,
right?
And then they're just reading texts from their cell phones, being a source is now saying really
there's no in
completely changes.
There's no in between part where they're like, we're going to go check on this, or we're going to go off and do a little bit. I mean, I think that one of the things you've seen in the last few days is since news has accelerated, and I don't want to get into a journalism conversation either, but since news has accelerated, and now I think that CNN and all of these traditional outlets feel this incredible heat from just people beating actual people at the scene, beating them to information, and beating them to
which
stories.
Is very much the fertilizer plant, right?
Right,
I mean,
and
that video, and I think we might have this. There was a Vine from Boston.
Yeah,
there is.
It was
just
it's in the.
It's a DVR.
It was literally somebody played it on their DVR and then took a Vine of it.
Well, but it was a station running that footage, but it was footage from the scene. That Vine was actually recorded off of television.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Which was a station running, but of
from
course,
a TV. It was just such a weird circular.
Yeah, this is it.
This is terrible.
Yeah, but for some reason, it was the Vine itself that was what got popular.
It's because it freezes here, I think, on this explosion, and I don't know why that is.
But it's so just the incredible people. I think they're now looking. They're going to the internet, right, and they're going to these other channels where information is just pouring at you. It's not necessarily curated or filtered.
Yeah,
and I think the actual news organizations now feel they have to operate at that pace.
Yeah, I think there's that. I think there's this increased sense of we've just got to get there first,
right?
And it's it's something that we have strived to, having kind of come from a world of blogging, where first is this big thing, and it's we have done everything that we can, and increasingly do everything we can to. If we do have something up, if we do have a breaking piece of news and we don't have all the details, we don't flesh out the details. And people have actually, they bitch sometimes that we put up a headline and it says developing, or we have one line in there and it says developing. The reason it says developing is because the news is coming. We're getting the news, but we are trying to make sense of it. And, we want to, obviously we want people to know that that's coming and that we are going to be on the story.
But I think the problem with CNN wasn't that they had the incomplete story and they were
they had the wrong story.
Wrong.
Yeah.
They were so confident.
So bringing it back to this Post thing. So today the Post runs cover story, Bagmen. This ridiculous headline. I don't know if we can put it up on the screen or not, but and it has a picture of these two guys that the Reddit people were just sure that these were the guys, that somehow they were standing there with bags, and one has a white cap, and there's all this misinformation, all this weird stuff going around, and it's in the echo chamber of the internet, in this with this mob mentality where you literally have a bunch of amateur.
Right.
I mean, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what their agenda is. I don't know what their Redditors are anonymous. It's this is not your job. Your job is not to solve crimes, okay?
Well, so
but I just want to say, hold on, and I'm sure you're going to have something to say here, but I just want to say, like, this to me is that the authorities said, give us your pictures, give us your video. We want to try to figure this out. We have professionals who are forensics experts that are going to look at this stuff and figure it out. This is like if a doctor said to you, if you had a friend who was sick, and the doctor was like, if they get any sicker, bring them to me, because we might have to do surgery.
Right.
And you're like, and you sense them, they seem to be getting sick, and you're like, well, I'm just going to do the surgery myself.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what's going on. Like it's like this is not your job. You don't do it professionally. You don't have all of the data. You don't have all of the details. The authorities aren't going to share all of their information with you. And like, I'm all for, I love the spirit of let's get together collectively and do something to help. But what that should be is let's get together and go donate blood.
Yeah,
or let's get together and raise money for families of the victims of this. Or let's make sure, let's put the word out that if you have photos or video, it needs to go to the authorities. But the way you help is not you put on your little detective, your little Sherlock hat, and decide that you're going to be like a cool crime solver. Because I think it's really dangerous. I mean, it's what's happening with these guys being on the cover of the New York Post, which from what we can tell seems to be completely thanks to what's been going on the internet. It's extremely dangerous and extremely harmful, and it really hurts the process. So there's
a two-step thing. I mean, you're not going to get crowds to stop being curious and looking up, and maybe they will find something. It's when they took that information that they weren't sure about and then grabbed the pitchforks.
Well, so hold on.
Where it went bad.
Well, so I think there is a little bit of a media story here, right? Which is, it's fine for the people on Reddit and the people on 4chan to go and look at this stuff, right? That's great, and I think there's a lot of hope.
I don't think it's great.
I mean, but you can.
I don't think
you're allowed to do it.
You're allowed. You're allowed to write, and you're allowed to write a racist magazine and publish it, or start a racist Reddit thread. But like, I don't
for you to do bad things. I'm saying you can participate and you can get done with whatever cockamamie process you want to have, and then be like, authorities, here's our information.
Sure.
And then the authorities can do whatever they want with it. I think all that's fine. What's not fine, and I think here's where the problem set in, was there was this great hope. And I think this hope is manifested that somehow the internet would solve this they would fix it. Like this collective band of anonymous strangers would somehow beat the authorities and be vigilantes.
Yeah, but that hope comes from
nowhere.
It comes from the immature mind of the Redditor who thinks that they can
Reddit didn't publish the New York Post this morning.
No, they didn't publish the New York Post story, but what they did do was, because they're not professionals and because they're working in a public forum, they doxed people. They took pictures of actual human beings who live and work and are real, and were like, these guys look like the bombers.
Yeah, that was the point. That was when they crossed the line.
Yeah, but you can't be a Reddit collective looking at photos of human beings trying to decide who's the bomber without totally violating and stepping all over those people's rights to privacy and to not being. I mean, it's libel. I mean, it's basically defamatory that you would look at a person's picture and put it online and say this person looks most likely like they're the bomber. Mm-hmm. And it is shame on the New York Post for them to take any of that and to publish it.
Right.
Shame on them for ever doing something, for publishing a photo where it's alleged to be somebody without any evidence.
On the front page.
No, on the front page. Well, on any page. No evidence from the authorities, no confirmation from somebody.
Right.
But I think that the dangerous place is, and I agree with you that, look, there are people who are amateur investigators who spend time and effort trying to figure things out, and they do sometimes see something the police missed or get something that nobody else was paying attention to. But this is a case where it is 24 hours, 48 hours after this thing happened. There is a massive amount of imagery and video from the marathon. Right. Mm-hmm. No one asked for these guys to disseminate this stuff online and start picking it apart. And the result has been a disorganized, destructive mess.
Right.
And here's the thing: if you want to take all the photos you can find and try to figure out who the bomber is and take that to the authorities,
that's great.
Yeah. That's great. But if you want to do it in public if you're going to take those pictures and put them on a public forum, where it will be, where we'll have the gasoline poured on it by the media because it's a public place.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Right.
It's stupid, and it's and it is dangerous.
But there's a reason we didn't run the story yesterday. That we talked about it a lot, right?
Well, the story to run is the story that we ran today, which is where you see the result of something like this, and you see Redditors going in. By the way, I think I think that Reddit produces a lot of amazing stuff. This is not all people on Reddit. This is a small group of people, but you see the Redditors in these forums going, guys, stop posting that picture. Don't share this with media. This is wrong. We got the wrong people. And it's that's what a witch hunt looks like.
Right.
It's like you get somebody strung up only to discover that they're not the guy.
They're not actually a witch.
They're not a witch, or they're not the killer. I mean, this is like mob rule, and mob mentality and mob rule has no place in an investigation of an extremely serious, extremely real crime that has injured and killed people.
What's really interesting about this, and Alexis Madrigal wrote this today, and it's a counterpoint to some of the other stuff that's happening right now, which is I think there's a very strong sort of libertarian streak that is pervasive in Reddit and these communities.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll just do it. We don't need the government to help us. We don't need anybody to regulate this space. But Alexis's point was, this fiction only works as long as you pretend that what you do online isn't the same as your behavior offline.
Right.
So if you actually did this, if you had a warehouse full of people like circling print photographs and being like, is this the bomber? Like, we wouldn't cover that as some act of like heroic vigilantism.
Right.
We'd be like, these people are crazy.
It's a lynch mob.
It's a lynch mob, and like, this is what happens. Like, if you walked into somebody's apartment and they have like 4,000 frames of the Zapruder film of the JFK assassination hung up, you'd be like, you're crazy. Like, you're obsessed and weird and crazy.
It's okay that there's personal investigation going on. If you have access to it, that's great. The problem is, this is not a data collation issue. I mean, there is it is partially that. It is partially that the data.
It's not a wrong like programmatic.
Yeah, this is not a but this is not a programmatic issue. In order to understand, and I don't, by the way, pretend that I have the knowledge to even fully explain this. Okay. But what I will say is, in order to do the kind of work that the authorities are doing right now, you not only need to have these amateur pieces of photography and these amateur videos, but you need to have access to CCTV, you need to have access to security cameras, you need to have access to aerial cameras, you need to have access to witnesses, you need to have access to victims, and data like phone logs, and I mean the depth of the data that you need to properly conduct.
You need to be the cops.
You need to be the FBI and the police who are actually doing this work and who are really good at it,
trained,
and solve a lot of these things pretty quickly. And I have no doubt that in the coming days they are going to figure it out.
Right, and
we know that these guys, by the way, like your first pass amateur investigators, has resulted in a totally destructive moment for this case, which is we took our attention off of, the real story, which is the people who were victimized and the horror of this bombing, and made it a story about like Reddit forms a lynch mob.
Right.
And it also injured these guys who are on the cover of a paper now who have come forward and they're like freaking out. They're like,
Right.
They're I think one of them is a high school student or something.
Well, one student, one's their coach. Like, this harkens back to like the Richard Jewell thing from like the Centennial Olympic Park bombing. Right. He was a hero, and then he was villainized because of some.
And what's funny about that is that I was like 15 when that happened.
Yeah.
And I remember him, and I don't remember who actually did it.
Right.
It was just like terrible, right? Like,
and I think that in the age of the internet, and this is the real thing. I mean, that was trial by the media.
Right.
The Richard Jewell thing.
But we've seen echoes of that too. Like when CNN, like the FBI had to do a press release yesterday saying we have not arrested anyone.
That was another amazing
CNN reported arrest made.
Adding our sitting there watching
Saudi national
watching
arrest made.
CNN again, right? I mean, I don't generally watch a lot of like TV news during the day, but like, so we just had it was on mute, and every time we looked up, it had the huge breaking news banner, and we'd be like, oh shit, and like turn on the sound, and it would just be like Anderson Cooper reading the same thing again. But finally, they're like, okay, arrests have been made. We're hearing somebody's in custody. Everyone's massed outside of the courthouse in Boston, like thousands of media people are there. So many so that eventually there was a bomb threat and the courthouse was evacuated. And the FBI put out a press release. It was like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Like, don't report things until we, like, the FBI's press release was basically shut up CNN.
Yeah.
Right? And that was it. And I think they didn't even have their scheduled press conference for the day. They were like, which would have been tremendously useful, I think, if like the police and the FBI had a press conference. They were supposed to have it at 5. The courthouse got evacuated, got moved to 8, and I think then it just got put to bed.
It's
right? Like,
it's just like everybody needs to chill out. I mean, basically everybody needs to chill out for a minute and let the police and the FBI do their job here. But I think also like as having covered this, and being in the midst of covering it, you have to figure out. For us, it's also like we're exploring certain areas of coverage. We're talking about things that we may do or may not do that are, you have to kind of test your comfort zone with it, but you really have to ask yourself, is there any value here? Are we, is there context? Are you telling a story or are you, and is that story valuable or are you just adding to like this wave of noise,
Right.
And I think that everybody's just so desperate to have something to say. You see this, by the way, with all sorts of news stories, not just a terrible tragedy like a bombing. It can be anything. You see this wave of people who, and then you've got like the second wave. You get the wave of people who are covering, and then you've got the wave of the critics, and then there's like a third wave of the not professional media critics, but like professional troll bloggers who are, the MG Sieglers of the world, who have their like, attention grabbing moment. And so it's like this pile on, and it's. I actually spoke to a critic of some of the coverage that we did, and I was like, it's funny, it's weird in a moment of this intense tragedy and confusion that there are people who take the time not to try to contribute but to complain about things, which seems like such an odd place for your energy to go during something like this. So anyhow, the Reddit stuff, we've covered. I don't think they're going to stop. I think they're going to keep going with these.
No, of course they're going to keep going. I mean,
I think they're going to keep going, and I think that
here's what's going to happen.
I hope here's
the inevitably damaging and destructive thing that will happen here. The cops will figure it out, right? We hope, and then Reddit will just keep going. And somehow that will turn into a massive conspiracy theory, about how this was a false flag attack, or there was a cop in the area right before, or you could see something. I mean, what's
incredible
is a dude on the roof.
What's incredible is day one of this. I mean, hour one or whatever it was.
It was a conspiracy theory.
There was some guy from InfoWars asking the governor, of Massachusetts,
is this a
false flag attack? Which is like, listen. I'm psyched that you have a conspiracy theory, but you are in the extreme, intense minority if you think like the American government is dropping pipe bombs during the Boston Marathon. And there are real questions to be asked.
Yeah.
And one of them is not like, did the American government plan the Boston Marathon bombing to the governor? Because even if they did, by the way, I just want you to
catch him.
InfoWars, I want to tell you, even if there was a false flag attack that was part of a vast global conspiracy of which the U.S. government is a part, the governor would not tell you yes to that question because he's in on it. Obviously.
Obviously.
I mean, obviously he's
a glimmer of recognition in his eyes.
You would also see the glimmer of the reptilian, of the reptile that lives beneath the shape-shifted flesh of the governor. Which is, I think, something that the InfoWars people believe.
So then let's segue to another.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're going to keep tracking that. The story is actually is developing in all sorts of directions.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of national security questions. There's a bunch of policy questions.
And so the policy questions are the ones that are coming up right away because there was a vote on CISPA in the House yesterday.
Yeah.
Which was defeated last year in the Senate. And then it was back for debate yesterday. And so CISPA is the Cybersecurity Intelligence Act, right?
And by the way, am I crazy? I don't want to jump ahead here or jump the gun, but
jump a gun.
There was an enormous amount of strangely worded like terrorism wording.
Yeah, let me read
like
some quotes.
scary terrorism wording in this conversation.
In the debate.
Comparing like to Boston Marathon.
Yeah. So
bombs.
Candace Miller, a Republican from Michigan.
So CISPA passed
288 to 127 yesterday.
in the House.
In the House.
Right.
Going back to the Senate, I think Obama has still threatened to veto it. So there's a lot of controversy.
And by the way, there could be no love lost at this point after the gun control stuff.
Right.
I'm sure Obama's like so psyched
He's
to veto
really mad.
anything that's like Republican
Those were
driven.
incredibly scathing.
Yeah.
yesterday.
He was
They
not happy yesterday.
No, I mean, and why should he be happy? Well, I mean, we should talk about that a little bit. But
So
anyhow.
Candace Miller, who's a Republican representative from Michigan, said North Korean hackers will take down the U.S. power grid. Joe Heck, who's a Republican from Nevada, said our nation is under attack. Mike McCall, a Republican from Texas.
Hold on. That is an outrage.
But let me just read this quote. Let me just raise the temperature on you one more degree.
Okay.
Mike McCall, Republican from Texas. In the case of Boston, they were real bombs. In this case, they're digital bombs, and these digital bombs are on their way.
This guy.
Wait. There's one more.
This guy should be sent to jail.
One more. Representative Rob Woodall from Georgia. Yeah.
Your home
Quote,
state.
yes. Quote, the Fourth Amendment trumps all, he said. Like, basically, whatever protection of privacy you think you have, it doesn't matter. The Fourth Amendment is going to be the
great.
justification for this measure.
That's great.
And ACLU's...
you get the feeling Constitution is causing a lot of problems.
Yeah. Well, according to the ACLU's Michelle Richardson, this bill is all the same. It's pretty much the exact same what they introduced before.
Yeah.
They haven't made
Right.
a lot of changes. Clarification, sure, but it's pretty much the same thing that we all fought against with so much vigor that we'll probably never see again.
Well, this is exactly how you end up in a war with Iraq after a terrorist attack. No, I mean it is. I mean this is what happens. Is you take an issue that has been a thorn in your side that's relatively unrelated. Cyber terrorism is a form of terrorism. Don't get me wrong. It's just really different than dropping an actual physical bomb. In a crowded race.
I don't want to dive into CISPA.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about it a lot for over a year.
But I imagine we'll get back into it.
Just to remind
later.
people what goes on here is right now, companies like Facebook and Google and Apple, whoever, they collect a bunch of your information, right? And they can't share it among themselves. They can't share it with the government. CISPA creates a framework that basically says those companies can now share that information with the government without liability.
Right.
And then the government can run around doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
And the justification essentially is, don't worry, we won't do anything bad. But we need to start coordinating among all these companies that are all being attacked every day. And they need, the companies themselves need to be able to do best practices of security. And the government needs to know what the threat vectors are for all of these companies and systems so that we can develop a coordinated national plan.
So that
and when
makes
I
sense.
point out, when I say it that way, it sounds great.
Sounds very reasonable.
When you dive in the bill language and they're like, there will be no liability for sharing personal information with the government, you're like, huh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this bill was defeated last year. Obama has consistently threatened to veto it in this form. And the Republicans are basically like, hey, there was a bombing. Let's try again. And it just seems, it's just so detached from the reality of what people
And by the
want.
way, if he vetoes it,
Right.
now if he vetoes it, I have no doubt the Republicans will say Obama doesn't care about national security. He doesn't care about protecting us against terrorism, because he vetoed in the wake of the Boston Marathon bombings.
Right.
We put a bill in front of him that would protect us and protect our citizens from terrorism, and he said no to it.
Right.
Which is like this messed up game of politics.
But
that I think
but
we
it's
have in
funny
this
because
country.
at the State of the Union, Obama passed a cybersecurity, an executive order, beefing up some of these protections, and he's sitting there urging Congress to do something about it. But he's but balance it with what the people are telling you they want, which is some amount of protection for their privacy and all of this data that's in the cloud. And I would say, what's really interesting to me is these two things happening at the same time, this weird Reddit doxing and this incredible fight for personal privacy. It's if I had to pick, if I had to choose between one of these outcomes, I would take away the Reddit doxing, and I'd be like, all right, Facebook and Google, I sort of trust you to handle my personal information in the case of cyber threats from foreign countries.
So the question is, though,
I somewhat trust you and the government to all coordinate and do a best practice.
Well,
I do not trust the crazy anarchists on Reddit to find a bombing suspect.
Yeah, I do.
And it's weird because I don't have like a complete thought because it's all happening in the past 48 hours, but it's just weird, this idea that we don't need the government, we can do a better job than the government, and we're going to fight against the government, literally trying to give itself whatever tools it wants to do that job.
Yeah.
And instead of finding a balance, it's like we've adopted, or at least this particular crowd has adopted the most extreme position, which is like anarchism at its finest.
Yeah.
But so my concern, I'm speaking to you because you are way more of a legal expert, and I don't want to be an amateur critic of this just for the same reason, the doxing and all that, but the wording on the CISPA bill now still seems overtly broad to the point across. Like, would this survive like legal scrutiny?
The CISPA stuff?
Yeah, the current form.
Scrutiny from whom?
I mean, so that's the quote. That's the quote. The Fourth Amendment trumps all, right? Like, if this passes, the ACLU and a number of groups, CFF, whoever, would sue the government and say this is in violation of the Fourth Amendment. But who knows? I mean, who knows? The protections contained in here are there. They exist, and they're not using this information to like go and prosecute you. So I don't know. Like, is it an unreasonable search for Facebook to be like, here are the attacks, here's where they came from, here are the accounts that's not, it's maybe not a search. And our courts certainly aren't like wonderful at understanding that like what happens on computer servers is just as real as what happens in the real world.
But there's the broad idea of what it's trying to accomplish, and then there's the nuanced rhetoric that's in the bill that will be used and scrutinized and potentially used in other ways that wasn't expected. And like that's, I think, the big concern here.
But so that's, I mean, if you want to adopt a very conservative position, that's the problem with any piece of legislation, right? That you put in this wording, you have these idealistic vision of what you're going to achieve, and then people like literally turn that into whatever they want. And so any piece of legislation,
sort of like the Bible.
Yes. Wow. Way to go there, man.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Troll bloggers in the Bible.
I'm just
the Joshua
saying.
Topolsky story.
I'm just saying. You know, the Bible is like. It's
my
like
phone's ringing. I bet that's
can
like
be wielded.
That's God calling
Like, stop
right
talking.
now, do not bring me into this
Somebody
conversation.
telling us to stop talking about the Bible. Anyhow, so it's actually, you know, I don't want to. We have to move on because we have other topics we want to get to.
We have a lot of other topics.
And I want to actually segue from what you were just talking about into Facebook. I know that there's other stuff, but you know, because you were saying you trust Facebook with your data, and we did. You know, Facebook obviously recently released Home and Messenger of
chat heads.
It's actually, is it Messenger or messaging?
Facebook.
What do they call it? Messenger? Is that the official name? Anyhow, so they released this new app with chat heads and the home screen. But we did
Messenger.
Okay.
It is Messenger. So we did we did this great like in-depth look at their design process for creating chat heads and creating their messaging product. And one of the things I was surprised about was to hear from the developers there that they all used Facebook groups to communicate. And that's how they work. And they pointed out that there are something like 80 million private Facebook groups. And I just thought, like, here's a perfect target for CISPA, right? Here's a perfect target for them to be like, we need to know what all those private Facebook groups are right now, you know? And I you know, I don't know who like you're it's kind of a false equivalency. Like, do I want the doxing guides on Reddit, or do I want this crazy regulation from a broken, you know, sort of a broken system? Like I mean, you know, I do basically trust our government to do the right thing.
Just a tiny little bit more. It's like, how far do I want the pendulum to swing in favor of like the crowd, right? And I would say that I'd rather have it swing towards like institutions that I trust. Which I'm going to get a lot of like shit for being like a classical liberal in that way. But like, I would rather not have anarchists on Reddit. Like,
well, I think I'm all for. I'm in support of new things and new ideas. But what I will say is, our government has many problems. Most of them having to do with lobbyists and the way money flows through into our government from corporations like Facebook and Google and much worse. Far worse corporations. But I think that, like, generally, our you know, I trust the intent of most members of our government, and I'm maybe not Congress and the Senate.
Maybe not most of
that. I mean, generally, I think there are the spirit is there that like we're going.
Have you watched House of Cards yet?
No, I haven't watched the whole thing. I watched the first episode. I have watched it. Maybe because I've been watching The West Wing, I've got this wrong.
You got to watch House of Cards.
But our government built America. I mean, yes, the people did, but this government has been doing American stuff for a long time. And like there are Republican presidents and Democrat presidents who have done all sorts of great things to build our country into what it is. And in our best moments, the government does amazing stuff in their best moments, rather. And I believe that the possibility of government regulating and governing can result in incredible moments for America and for the world. In its worst moments, it can be a totally destructive, horrible force where we end up in a war for 10 years for no apparent reason, and like nobody knows why, and like we spent all this money and destroyed our economy. And you remember what the last 10 years have been like.
I mean, but by and large, like it's a government designed to change slowly because you don't want a reactionary government in case they react the wrong way. And yes, there are things that fall through the crack. I'm not minimizing or diminishing anything we're talking about, but like there is a beauty, right? It built this nation because it was slow to screwing things up.
Well, I would say that we built this city.
We built the city on rock and roll.
We did it on rock and roll.
Yeah. But I think that
I mean, let's be honest.
I mean, there's definitely like a kind of rot
Yeah.
in the government right now that I think Democrats and Republicans, no matter what party you are, you can be libertarian or whatever, you're going to look at it and go, yeah, there's a real problem. I mean, I don't know what American, unless I don't know who you are that agrees with this idea that corporations are people and that, you know, that free speech is, that money is free speech. Like those things
that one's much harder.
Yeah.
That one's much harder.
Kind of.
It's way harder.
In the case of anything but who we elected officials, I would say yes. But when you've got like, when it's like a question of who can shout louder, I actually think, and I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but I think when it comes to like our election process for the people we put into office, it should be you have a finite amount of money as dictated by the government. You have a finite amount of time.
Tried this in like every state.
But this actually works in other countries. You have a finite amount of time to campaign.
Right.
And personally, this is the more controversial thing, and I'm sure people will be very mad. I think it should be mandatory for Americans to vote, and I think that you should be fined if you don't vote. I think you should be fined $100 if you don't vote. And there should be 2 days of open voting over the weekend.
No, I agree with you there. And it should be done over the internet.
I mean, why isn't it not over the internet?
I would like a pony.
But why is it not? But why is it? It just be like,
should be wearing a vest.
And I want a webcast from Obama every week where I can ask him questions personally.
I think if you're an American citizen, you should have to say what your opinion is on who's going to make the laws that will govern your life. And if you don't want to do that, love it or leave it.
Wow.
Like that. I was going hard like liberal socialist, and then I just threw it back a little conservative at the end there.
Are we going to talk about the Facebook phone?
Everybody loves the Facebook phone. Who saw this one come in?
Right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
This guy.
Love it.
It's a hard transition here, but I'm doing it.
You love it for a different reason. I'm going to help you with this transition.
I love it because I'm a socialist, and you love it
because
you're a fascist.
No, I'm just not a people person. I just don't like the Facebook part of it, but I love everything else about the phone.
You know, I like it, and somebody asked me this. It's because I actually I like using home. This is, by the way, the weirdest transition in the history of the Verge.
I like it. I think it's right.
But I actually have it set as my lock screen.
This has been a dour Vergecast.
I'm trying to cheer us up. I like something. Yeah. The first show in the history of the Vergecast.
Did you know? Have you used the IR Blaster functionality on that? By the way,
I said I like something. I didn't say I like you. No, look. You know what? I like this lock screen.
You like that?
I have it set so that when you push the home button, it takes you to stock Android.
Can I see how that works?
Yeah, you just push the home button and it takes you to stock.
But
Android.
It's
like 3 steps to get your phone unlocked.
I just have to unlock it.
But here's the thing: you actually you use your Facebook that much. Like Facebook is not just an authentication tool for you; it's actually a network.
I don't use Facebook for authentication.
I've been using it.
I use Twitter a lot.
Yeah, but I've been using. I mean, it's funny. I've been using Facebook more now.
Yes,
I see it.
Yes. Here's the thing: the Facebook, the cover feed. Yeah, is that what they call it? God, these names.
Yeah,
the cover feed idea is actually really good.
It's good. Right.
And all I wish is that I could just plug in my Instagram and my Twitter.
Yeah,
and like Flickr and other
Blink
things.
Feed from HTC.
Yeah, basically.
But here's the difference.
No, but Blink Feed is like
Blink Feed is not good.
Well, it's not the lock screen. You can't make Blink Feed your lock screen.
No,
I don't think so.
Oh, I don't have my phone.
But
on
here's
me,
why. But here,
also, it's called Blink Feed.
And I've come to understand why I like this experience far better than whatever Samsung does or whatever HTC does in Blink Feed. It's because Facebook and Google are 2 of the best software companies on earth. and they write really, really tremendously good software.
Yeah.
So I might not like love using Facebook, but I find the software they've written to sit on top of Android to be like delightful and fun to use, and it makes me want to use Facebook more. And then I push the button and I get to use Google software. And at no point does Samsung's like S team of like hacks get in my way. Steam. And no point does like HTC's weird idea of what my clock should look like in Blink feed get in my way.
No, I mean the brilliant thing about this phone, about the first, and about the home concept is Facebook said kind of smartly, look, we don't need to take over your whole phone to be prominent and important.
Right.
We just need to take over the parts that you use a lot,
right?
Like SMS, and messaging, and your home screen, your lock screen, and your home screen. But they also weirdly, and on this device, I don't understand, but I wish I would love for HTC to do this. When you turn off Facebook Home and you turn off the messaging if you don't want it, you just have basically a stock. You have a stock Android device,
which is what I'm doing, and
it's like a 4.3-inch screen. It looks nice.
It has LTE.
It has LTE. I mean,
it has a really great screen. It has. I will say
it's
this.
also, by the way, benchmarks higher than the Nexus 4 in my testing.
Wow. Interesting. I haven't tried any of that yet because I just like using it. Like,
not that benchmarks necessarily are the only thing.
It has an absolutely garbage camera.
Camera's
which for a phone designed to get you to use Facebook is such.
No, I agree. They should have made more of an investment in the camera. And I will say, having used the One now, which to me is the absolute, I think probably the best smartphone I've ever used.
Yeah.
I wish it had slightly better battery life, but my Droid has been all but abandoned.
But you like the One camera.
The One. The One camera is great.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know what, like, it's not going to, it doesn't take, I would say that the iPhone 5's images look more filmic. They look more like a camera.
Right.
By a few degrees, not crazy. But the One is, I think, produces really great results. It works really well in low light, and it's for me has been very consistent.
Yeah,
it's not the best. I don't think it's like the most beautiful camera I've ever used on a phone. But it is so much better than most cameras I've used on a phone.
And especially most Android cameras. I don't know what it is, but like we've yet to see a good one. Lumia is actually surprisingly good camera, but it's a Windows phone.
And the fact is, I'm not printing these out. I'm not making prints out of my images that I take on my phone. What I'm doing is I'm putting them on social networks.
You're heavily filtering them and putting them.
I'm heavily filtering them and putting them on Instagram. But actually, the one thing I'll say that's annoying is I use my I use the One in the widescreen mode because the resolution doesn't change. It doesn't go. Most phones, when you switch to widescreen mode, it goes from like an 8-megapixel shot or whatever to because it's distributing the pixels differently. This is just like it's just crop.
It's still just a 4-megapixel.
No, it's cropping, right? Yeah. So it's just cropping it out for the other shots. But what's annoying is if you take a picture and you put it on Twitter, that's the widescreen. Twitter does some weird scaling where it makes the image super tiny.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, like you and I tweeted a picture of the same thing or something one day, and I was extremely annoyed because yours blew up to like a 4:3 size, and mine, because it was 16:9, it like scales it down and it never gets bigger.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's annoying. Anyhow, but the first is actually good. If it had a better camera, I would seriously consider that in place of.
I've never seen a phone besides a new iPhone just quickly take over our staff like the first.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, admittedly, like there's a bunch of review units floating around.
We have in a week or so. A lot of these are going to go back. What I want to see is who is going to switch.
Yeah.
I'm on the precipice of doing so. I want one in red. I've got the contract upgrade. I'm not leaving AT&T.
Yeah.
Like when this goes back, and I think it's in a week's time, I'm probably going to pick up the red first.
But I will just
the fact that there's a red. I have a baby blue one, and I think the baby blue is actually kind of. Cool.
I will say this. I mean, we get a lot of review units all the time, like, and people don't ever use them.
Yeah,
they're like,
they're not interested.
I have phones on my desk for days, and I'm like, wow, I like unlock the screen.
Yeah,
you have a
Sony that's been sitting on your desk for like a week, and you don't seem to be interested in it at all.
I mean, it's just not good. Like, I don't want to deal with it. But this is great. I mean, I will say that it is pretty funny that Facebook is like, here's our first phone. We're going to tell HTC what to do. And they've basically delivered the phone that like most of us have wanted for a long time. Yeah. Minus this terrible camera, and obviously I wish it had a 5-inch screen. But like,
I will say this. I was using an iPhone 5 on AT&T, and my Droid on Verizon. I have to say, the battery life on that thing is still like ridiculous. But when you put that next to the One, not the first, even the first in some way is like kind of the screen is better.
Yeah.
That's
the screen.
The screen is better. That's about
and I was and I'm 100% that this was done on purpose, but it is built to feel exactly
Feels
like an
just
iPhone,
like an iPhone.
3GS.
Yeah.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Like the buttons are in the same place, the volume's in the same place.
Is this blue?
No, it's white.
It's just so
white.
blue in here.
And it's got like the same rounded side. It feels better. It's like built a little bit better
I
than the iPhone.
love the matte back on this.
No, it's great. It's like
Didn't crack.
This is like the cheaper iPhone.
Yeah, there's like case leaks of a cheaper iPhone floating around, and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yep.
But it is a nice little phone, and just the fact that you can go to stock is
Yeah.
incredible.
Right.
Okay, are we switching gears?
We have to switch
make a
gears. We're
move.
running out
Okay.
of time.
Are we?
Yeah.
Yep.
People are real mad that the Vergecasts have been an hour lately, but
Instead
we've been
of-
really
instead of 2 hours.
We've been really busy lately, and it's really hard to do a 2 hour
Yeah.
or an hour and a half.
Right.
One of these days, maybe when Paul comes back,
When Paul comes back, we'll do.
we
an
should do like a
extended
marathon.
Yeah.
I mean,
Vergecast.
that night he comes back, we will be on the air with Paul. Like,
Yeah.
just talking to him.
You're
getting
just
like a
watching Paul
6
read the
hours of
internet.
him just
Just
playing
holding
StarCraft.
hands.
Here's my real concern with Paul coming back in the internet. Are you ready? Like,
Yeah.
We're all excited. we all wanna
Finally,
be
finally,
there.
we get to hear your
We all
real
want to
concern.
be there with him. Like I want it to be a party. I'm
Yeah.
excited to have Paul back on the internet. But I'm sure that what Paul wants to do is like jack into the internet and like drown out the world and not pay attention to us.
When he sees how much
we're not gonna
pornography
do
has
it
changed
together.
Yeah.
over this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, wow, it streams in HD.
You know what would be
now?
amazing?
For free?
Hold on. You know what would be amazing? Can I suggest something?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for
Could we
it.
do this? I just had this idea.
Okay.
What if we could get like, we're going to say, hey, we're going to make a big deal out of Paul coming back, and we're going to put him on a computer. We're going to get him. We're going to film it or something.
Yeah.
Right.
And we give him a totally fake internet to look at, where like everything has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of weird stuff on it, and we're like, oh yeah, you don't know about flarping? I don't know what that is, but it's the
Flarping.
thing.
Yeah.
Flarping. It's like LARPing, but with a FL in front of it, or with an F in
But
front of
just,
it.
Yeah.
No, an extra FL.
Yeah.
Full of LARP.
Flarping. It's like, Anyhow, like Lloyd with two
Right.
L's.
Yeah. You mean Yoid?
Anyhow.
The second L
Can
is
we
silent.
do that? How much effort do you think it would take?
I'm sure
to
we can
create
get-
a new internet that's where everything's
I'm
different.
sure we have one of our writers, Evan Rogers, who could probably just make that in a weekend.
Yeah, we should have him. We should have him whip it up. Okay, so now we're going to change gears. As you guys know, we launched our science hub, our science section, our science portal this week.
Yeah.
And
Area.
what?
Or science area.
Science area, and
Zone.
and Katie
Science quadrant.
Katie Drummond, our science editor, is here.
Right.
Yeah.
So
She's in the room.
And Ross refuses to leave.
Ross-
I've been
Ross
waiting for you
won't
to
get
get up
up.
and
Well,
go
hold
away.
on. I want the key music. I want to see
There's
this
a
teaser
music?
video. I want to see this teaser video.
Oh.
And then I will magically.
Oh, that's what's going to
Jump
happen.
up behind the
so
scenes.
Katie's going to join us, but first take a look at we did a little kind of get excited about science on the Verge
Right.
video, and when we come back,
I did like the idea that you just refused to leave.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're like I
I'm
won't
just
go.
not
It's
getting
like
out of the
he pulls
seat.
his hand up and there's a handcuff and it's still like a part of the desk.
I've been trying for a while.
Anyhow,
guys.
Katie's going to join us in a minute, but watch this and we'll be right back.
What if I told you that within 2 years, you'd be able to control another person's movements using nothing but your thoughts? Or that within 10, you'd be able to replace your own kidney with one grown in a lab? Or that in 30 years, you'd be packing the cooler and rallying the kids for a long weekend in deep space? These aren't just the dreams of kids and creatives. This is our future. And it's coming faster than you might think. All thanks to the breakthroughs emerging from brilliant, curious, creative minds across the globe. Sure, it can be tough to wrap your head around when you're not working in a physics lab or an ivory tower of academia. But think about it this way. Discoveries in medicine will let you stay healthier and live longer. New electronics will give you instant access to whatever information you want, wherever you are, and whenever you need it. Progress in transportation will mean the freedom to travel anywhere on Earth in a fraction of the time. And those examples are only the tip of the iceberg. Just bring your biggest ideas and your wildest dreams to the table. There's no guarantee they can be achieved or realized today, but when you think about it, that's the best part. Science never gives up and never stops looking for new answers. All you need to do is ask the question. Welcome to the Verge Science.
And we are back with none other.
Katie, I think Katie should say welcome
Big
to Verge Science
Katie.
again.
Yeah.
Welcome to Verge Science.
Is there an echo on this? It sounds
That's
very
good.
epic. Let me just turn this that way.
Thank
okay.
you.
Katie, thank you for joining us on the
Thank you,
Vergecast.
Joshua.
Wow. Whoa. That's
Thank you.
very proper.
There's definitely an echo going on.
There is an echo. Where is that coming from, guys? Oh yeah, you're the worst. Not you, John, in the control room. He's a wonderful man, actually. Katie, science, what is it?
Science is all about possibility, discovery,
Yeah.
answering questions.
Okay.
Always a new question. Everyone's trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Do we
science.
know? Can science prove whether or not God is real?
Oh God, really? You're starting here?
I'm just-
Welcome to work, Katie. This is what your job will be like.
I'm going to pass on that.
Can science tell me if aliens exist?
Not yet.
Can science create an object out of nothing?
Yes.
Could science? Sorry, I don't know. I don't have a lot of science questions, actually. No, we're very excited. So we had been doing science coverage on The Verge, but had wanted to put a much clearer focus on it, as you know.
Sure.
Which is why you're sitting here.
Yeah.
And I should be telling them this. But and so it was kind of a painstaking process trying to find somebody who had the right sort of set of skills to do the science section properly. And you're not just like kind of a science person. You're also very interested in, we've talked a lot about like national security stuff over the last few days, obviously,
Sure.
because you used to work at Danger Room
Sure.
For Wired.
Yeah.
And so you'll probably be doing some of that stuff as well.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
But what is exciting to you right now in terms of science? Like what's a thing that's happening that you are most excited about? Like I know there's this discovery today about new planets.
Sure.
Where
Yeah.
aliens live.
Yeah.
Or maybe live.
Yeah.
And we can go visit.
Yeah. And I mean, okay. So I'll ask you to go read the story after.
Okay.
And it'll maybe clarify a few things.
Sure.
So we can go visit.
Right.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Or
There you go. Yeah, you got
vaguely threatening.
This is going really well. So I think I've always been someone very interested in health and medicine, and that's sort of, if I had to pick a niche in science, that would be my thing. And so I think what I find really interesting right now is regenerative medicine, and the idea that we can sort of rebuild our bodies, and that is something that will emerge as a valid option in the next decade.
But I saw the new
insane.
But I saw the most recent Spider-Man movie, and a lot of the plot centers around regenerating limbs, and it didn't go well in the film.
Right.
What happened was it turned somebody into a monster.
No, terrifying octopus.
Is that something that we need to worry about?
no, that wasn't it.
No,
That was
then
the
the latest
third
one,
one.
it turned a
true.
guy into a lizard, the lizard. I think it's his name.
Okay.
It's like a giant man lizard. Do we need to worry about that when it comes to regeneration, body regeneration?
Doubtful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think? I always feel like we ran a story today about how rabies was sort of the inspiration for vampirism and zombies.
Sure. Yeah.
Doesn't it seem, and correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't it seem like our ideas about what science will do to us are always way more exciting and way less realistic than what science is actually doing to us?
I mean, I think yes and no. I think what they tend to be are unrealistic in the sense that I think we want to see results before results are actually ready.
Right.
So we sort of hear about a new kidney being regenerated, created in a lab, transplanted into a rat. And we sort of get really excited about that. And that is exciting.
Yeah. But humans immediately go to the 10 steps later.
Yeah. Right.
And our 10 steps later are crazy. We're like, oh, they found a way to put an artificial kidney into a rat. And then like somebody makes a movie about
And now I have an artificial kidney.
about
Exactly.
about giant rats that eat people's kidneys.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, I would watch that.
We'll get there.
What would that movie be called?
Sorry, a rat eating kidneys?
Yeah, like rat eat like from living people. It's like because that's what it feeds on, obviously.
Rodantia, the return.
No, I think that's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Rodenticide.
Ooh.
Like, which is what they call the stuff that kills rats.
Oh.
Oh, well, that's good.
I'm so sorry, Katie.
Totally.
Let me just
totally
apologize
cool.
to you right now.
Well,
Totally
I mean, we
cool.
know. Look, the science section has been revving for 24 hours, and I think people
Yeah.
are very aware of what we're doing there.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to like just rehash the stories we've been telling. I want to get to
No.
know Katie because
Sure.
we've never spoken before.
Clearly,
We've never met.
This is our first official conversation.
Yeah.
And so far you seem great. But I think people should know what her thoughts are on this rat movie that I'm coming up.
on Rodantia, the return.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, we do tend to kind of over fictionalize.
Sure, we get
Science.
excited. I mean, science is very exciting.
Well, actually-
we get excited about it, but it's important, and I think that's something that I'm hoping to make a priority for us at The Verge is to sort of obviously report this exciting research that's going on, but be very clear in sort of what the limitations are.
Yeah.
And be very clear in sort of what just happened. This is a rat. This is not a person. What does that mean?
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that happens in reporting science is that because extrapolation is easy, and when you don't have all of the data, it becomes even easier. And there's almost a laziness to not fully understanding, not fully grasping the story. Like this planet story today, which we talked about a little bit.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of unanswered questions that I think a lot of people, and this is not an indictment of anybody else, but you even as a reader, I tend to make all of these leaps and
Right.
about what it could mean,
Right.
and
But
without kind of knowing the
We
knowing the
did not
data.
find aliens. You cannot go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Still
you're
very
really ruining,
cool.
you're really crushing
but,
my.
Well, I will say this is really interesting because when in your intro post and a few of the other threads that we have in the forum now, because we have a new science forum, there was a lot of conversation about like, I'm really excited you guys are doing this, but please don't be like everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, please tell us what's actually happening and how this could actually work, because that's what we're interested in.
I think one thing you can count, and by the way, this is one of the things that when we talked, I immediately got, when we started talking about you coming here to do the science stuff, it was immediately that feeling of you're kind of weird the way a lot of people at The Verge are weird, and
Yeah.
like kind of a
Totally.
kind of a like
Yeah.
a kind of a detail oriented overachiever.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
and,
It's plagued me all my life.
You know, and like
Yeah.
and like also like kind of you kind of had, you know, you seem unsatisfied a lot of the time with like you want to go further, which is I
Yeah.
think a real thing here that we are unsatisfied with. We can do better.
Yeah. I
and-
was super annoyed like most of the day.
yeah
Yeah.
right
what?
no what were you annoyed? Maybe we should take this off.
Oh, just we can always,
Yeah.
I can always do better.
no. I say and I
you were
say
just
this,
annoyed with yourself, not with the world.
No, just high achiever.
right, and I think
What is that like? Because I've never actually.
no you're
Oh,
like, I
really?
think you're like that.
I think you're like that.
I'm more.
I
of
will
a
say that- I
sleepy-
will
Do you,
say-
do
no,
you
no, but
remember
the
about
sleepy
the night
type of
before
person
the
you
night
do?
before the section launched? You sent out that checklist.
But I will say this.
So that's like-
actually no, but
That's high achieving.
But it is high.
Yeah.
But you take a different approach. Like I am, like I beat myself up a lot, and I think I beat up people around me sometimes because of this feeling of not, not
Inadequacy?
physically inadequacy, or just like we didn't get it, or why didn't we do this, or why didn't I do that? I mean, I used to say there's this analogy I talk about all the time when I used to make music, that I would just work on music for weeks and weeks with like a band or by myself or whatever, and then by the end of it, I'd just be like, ugh, this is terrible. Like, why did I do this? Like, and the thing would always be you could do it better next time, but. And I think that I feel like I kind of get that vibe from you where it's like, okay, that was good, but we could do better. And you seem like you're striving really hard to make things amazing and to tell the full story and to paint a clearer picture. And you do that as well, but you are
I have maker's mark.
no, that could be it. That could be it. But you also are you've got like a soft side where you have like this better appreciation for the need to nurture.
No.
And even like with
You're a
when
mother hen.
Yeah.
God.
When it comes to
Vote for us in the Webbies, everyone. That's the Vergecast. I gotta go.
it's true though. I mean, the mother stuff gets thrown around a lot with you,
It's
which is
terrible.
weird. And also,
You're in the market
Yeah.
for kind of an irascible, somewhat buzzed mother.
I mean, the thing is,
here
you can be very combative, but you're kind of like you've got this like the soft side that like you're like, let's take a moment to hug.
I'm always hugging you, buddy.
I hope
All right,
after
can we
hope
please-
after the Vergecast.
Yeah.
No, but at the point
Science.
is, but that's
This
what
is
it's
a
here.
fun therapy session. I like
Yeah,
this.
you're like this is
Yeah.
this
This is what happened. You showed us.
This is
I know.
We're doing. All right.
so
Is psychology real?
yeah. Is psychology?
I have a therapy appointment tonight.
Is psychology science?
Uh-oh. Oh, God.
Boom. There's an article for you right there.
I think
That
so.
face.
She was thinking.
Such an angry face.
She was thinking.
Yeah.
You think
But
it
it's,
is?
I mean, it's not like a, man, I'm going to get shit for this.
Go ahead. Just do it.
I guess I just don't think of psychology in sort of the hard science sense where I think of like biology, chemistry, physics.
Right.
Psychology is something separate.
But there's a science to it.
I mean, it's research oriented.
I mean, there are doctors in the field. There are.
Yeah.
Sure, there are professors of psychology.
Right. There are.
But I guess I make a distinction as well
statisticians.
between sort of psychologists and psychiatrists.
Yeah. We're actually running. I mean, we have a story on deck about the DSM changing.
We do.
Yeah.
We're actually, I think, going to have a couple.
Let's not give it away. Let's not just.
Yeah,
come
but
on.
big
I don't wanna
topic,
lift the
a lot
veil
there to
We're going to be
explore,
covering,
so.
but one of the things, and I think this is, and by the way, we have to go. I just got in my ear, which is Ross now apparently, and now he's out. He just don't walk past. He's in the background.
What's happening?
I don't know. They're like trying to fix the TV
they're
back there.
turning off our
But
logos.
unfortunately, we're gonna have to go, and it's too bad because I think you need to come back on. And
I could
we
stay
need to
here
talk.
all day.
No, I know. So could I. Unfortunately, we're being rushed off for some reason. I think because of David Pierce.
Yeah, because of Pierce.
I think David Pierce is responsible, but one of the things about the science coverage is that we are, and I think if you don't know this, you didn't catch this week, and if you haven't been paying attention, we are obviously, our appetite for new fields of coverage and for expanding field of coverage is huge for us, and science is one of those places where I see all of these, like, it's actually incredible when you start to crack that open a little bit, how much everything else is a part of, you can classify in this world of science. How much of a connective tissue it is between topics.
Yeah,
and I think for us, it's been really liberating to have that big bucket.
Yeah.
And have that connective tissue to tap into.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited, very excited about what you're doing with science and what you're
Thank
going
you.
to do. And I would say to the viewer or the listener or the reader, get ready. Just put your.
We're going to tap into the connective tissue.
Yeah, with a scalpel.
That was vaguely threatening.
With a syringe. And we'll be using a syringe and a drill.
Yeah.
To do that.
All right, so we have 3 things to plug before we.
Okay, we got to plug. Oh,
before
we're
we
plugging.
go.
Get ready. Listen up. We're plugging. Go.
You're moderating a whole bunch of Tribeca panels next week.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. We are in partnership with the Tribeca Film Festival, hosting the Future of Film sessions at the Tribeca Film Festival, and I'm moderating a bunch of panels.
It's a lot of panels.
A bunch of panels with some really interesting people, including I'm doing a 3-man panel with David Denby and A.O. Scott, who are, you should know the names, are very respected film critics. It's called the Death of Film, I think, ?
Yeah.
I just want to say I didn't invent the name of that panel. But anyhow,
but we'll
the
be
whole
covering,
week,
and we've got
we're going to be
people at
covering. We have
screenings
people at Tribeca now who are covering films there, and we'll be obviously doing coverage from these panels where appropriate. But they're going to be doing video, and we'll be having the video replayed on the site and stuff. So it'll be great. And if you're at the film festival, you should try to make it to these panels because we've got some really, really interesting panels. We got people from Sony and Naughty Dog and all sorts of distributors and 2929 Entertainment and just like.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be fun.
We're doing a lot there.
Yeah.
I'm required to say that we're nominated for 5 Webbies.
We're nominated for 5 Webbies.
It closes next week.
Go
vote if you
ranging
want.
from
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'd love for your vote. You don't have to vote, but it's appreciated. You can go to the Webby Awards website and search for The Verge, and you'll see all the stuff. Polygon is also nominated. I want to say as a gaming site, and I don't know what their exact category is, but it's gaming.
Yeah. I think it's actually just gaming.
They should be voted. They should win.
They should be voted. They should be voted upon.
They should be voted for.
Upon.
With.
Right.
They should be voted with.
Yeah. Go with them.
Go with them.
And lastly, just very simple. Top Shelf is next at 5:30. That's the last.
Yeah, Top Shelf, the show that destroyed our great conversation that we were having about
Busy
science.
day.
Yeah. It's
always busy.
Never stops.
Anyhow, Katie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And
thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Ross, wherever you are up there.
Thank you, Ross.
Floating in the sky. And thank you, listener / viewer / reader, for tuning in and for making your donations.
I will say that these have gotten increasingly
station
abstract.
running. That's the Vergecast for the week. You can, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at vergecast@theverge.com. You can find us on Twitter @Verge. By the way, Verge Science @Verge Science. If you're interested in that sort of thing, and from a Twitter perspective.
Yeah.
You can. You can.
Verge Science.
You can tweet at us. Hold on a second. My flow got broken up. Right. You can email us. You can find us on Twitter. You can leave a comment in the post when it goes up. And
Katie Drum.
Hold on, we're gonna do. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And also, we're all on Twitter.
Yep.
Katie, you are Katie Drum. 2 M's.
2 M's.
2 M's. 1 E.
No, what? Drum like the drum
There's
that you
an E,
beat.
but there's an E on the end of Katie.
Yes.
So there's one
KATIEDRUMM.
with an @ symbol in front of it.
Yeah.
I'm Joshua Topolsky, which is easy to say and spell. And Nilay is reckless.
Yep.
Which is a word. Smart.
Apparently.
Very smart of him to choose a word that people know. And that's the show for this week. We will be back next week. I don't know if I'm going to be available because I'll be doing these panels. I think I will be, though. Anyhow, we'll be back next week. And as always, I wish you and yours the very best during this trying time. It is actually a crappy week.
Paul.